So, met my wife 10 years ago, and I was a diver. I trained for the Olympic team, coached kids from the time I was 12 years old, and loved kids, and I always knew that I was going to be a great dad, right? Because I had this coaching experience. I could apply the same experience to being a father, being a dad. It's all we wanted to do. We got married, we got pregnant right away. The whole family was ecstatic. We were super excited, and 3 months later, we lost the child. We lost our daughter. And it sent me into just a giant tailspin. And that was my pit. That was where I was stuck. And for 10 years straight, I struggled to figure out, how do I pull myself out? And, bounced from church to church and tried to seek and find anything I could just to claw my way out. And eventually my wife ran into an old high school friend of hers who had started this little church in a small town in Texas, and she started going, and I was not interested at all. I hated God, hated everything. I was pissed off, angry, but she kept going, and eventually she convinced me. She said, we've got this Thanksgiving food drive. We're going to the church. We're bagging up all of these Thanksgiving items in a frozen turkey, and we're going to be delivering them to families that don't have anything. And she said, I need to borrow your truck. And I said, no, you're not going to borrow my truck. I'm particular about my truck, right? I said, listen, I'll drive, but I'm not getting out of the car at all. So we drive out to this church where everybody's meeting, and we turn the corner. We were meeting at a middle school at the time. We turn the corner into the middle school, and all I see everywhere are children hanging on to these bags of groceries and grinning ear to ear, so excited about helping these other kids that don't have anything. And I literally at that moment just collapsed and looked up, and I said, okay, I get it. And that started my journey out of the pit. I started putting in work at the church. We didn't have much money, we didn't have a lot of resources, but I had time. And so I just focused on giving my time and giving and giving and giving. And we met some friends who had gone through foster care certification. They had actually gotten certified to take these kids on. They had kids of their own. They said, why don't you give it a shot? You never know. Maybe that's what God's calling you to do. Maybe that's what you're supposed to be doing. So we reluctantly went through the training process. It usually takes 30 days. It took us about a year because we were so, resistant to just doing it. And eventually got licensed and immediately got a phone call and got these two beautiful little girls that were from a family of 6 kids and 2 parents that were on meth. They showed up at the house with 2 bags of two trash bags full of clothes and 1 bag of groceries that their mom had just thrown a bunch of stuff in before she got arrested. And when I opened up the bag, it just reeked of meth. That acrid smell, that pungent smell. And that was our journey. That was the start of our journey. Since then, we've fostered 10 kids, all girls for some reason. I don't know why. I think it's another joke that God's got, putting on me. But we've adopted 2, and we're kind of running 2 horses in the same race, doing IVF and foster to adopt at the same time. And so went through 5 rounds of IVF and the emotional roller coaster of it not working. And after we lost our first child, the doctor said that my wife couldn't get pregnant at all. So just kept trying, kind of forcing it. And all along, these kids just kept showing up in our life. And so I finally went to my wife and I said, listen, I don't think that God wants us to do this. It feels very scientific and very forced. I think he wants us to go this direction. And so she said, okay, I get it. If that's what you think, I get it. Let's do that. A week later, she came back to me and she goes, we got 2 more embryos left. And I keep thinking, if we don't give it one more shot, I'm always going to wonder what if. So I was like, reluctantly just said, okay, well, let's do it one more time. Went in, and the protocol is 10 days later, they test and look for a heartbeat. 5 times we'd done it, 5 times no heartbeat. I go in for the 6th time, and I'm literally sitting in a chair. My wife's on the bed, laying there. The doctor's getting the ultrasound ready, and I'm jacking around on Facebook. not even paying attention. And all of a sudden we hear, I literally dropped my phone. And we, 9 months later, had our own daughter, Savannah. So we've got 3 little girls. But that is where we spend all of our time and energy and money and emotion is on these kids. And so it forced me to take what I do for a living and figure out how can we structure what we're doing in a way that will allow me to take this capital that we're generating, all this money we're generating, and really maximize that giving and helping these kids, because we have 2,800 kids in Austin, Texas right now that don't have a forever family. They're feeling literally like nobody gives a shit about them. They don't care about them. They're worthless. They're abandoned. There's no love, there's no food, there's no nutrition, there's no nothing. There's like this giant gap, and it's all driven by this meth addiction in Central Texas.
Wow.
And so my wife and I are very passionate about just getting involved, rolling up our sleeves, and helping these kids out in any way we can. So through my work, through financial services and finding different strategic partners, I discovered this system that allows people to set up and create family foundations and trusts where your trust can actually produce and grow and expand and generate cash that can be directed into whatever it is that's your mission and purpose. And if you do that effectively, you do not pay tax. You do not pay tax. The government literally says, if you want to take ownership and responsibility of taking care of others, awesome. That's what we want you to do. If you don't want to take ownership and responsibility of it, that's great. We'll do it for you. It's literally a choice.
Wow.
The problem is, for the last 100 years, our country has shifted so far demographically that we've lost those principles, those rules of the game, of money and finance. 105 years ago, there's a weird statistical anomaly. It's called the Rule of 97. I don't know if you've heard of it.
No.
It goes like this. In 1897, 97% of us in America were business owners and entrepreneurs. We created wealth. We created income for our families. 3% of us worked for the 97. They were the apprentices. You know, the entrepreneurs were butchers, bakers, shopkeepers, even the guy on the street sharpening scissors.
Peddlers. Farmers.
Yes, farmers. They were entrepreneurs. They were business owners. They understood the game of money. The rules of taxation were set up for that world. 100 years later, in 1997, those numbers flip-flopped, and only 3% of us owned a business or were entrepreneurs. The 97% of us worked for those corporations, and it completely changed the nature of taxation in our country. Here we are now, 105 years later, after the tax code was written, and we're all of a sudden seeing this rise of entrepreneurship because the pendulum is swinging back the other way. People are literally having to leave their job or find some other source of income just to make ends meet. And now we've got opportunities like this event that we're at now, where we've got 3,000 entrepreneurs in the room, all trying to do more and be more and create big shit. So that why? So they can give back more and be more philanthropic in their purpose.
Right.
The reason we start businesses and create big shit is so that we can do great things.
Right.
And yet we're stuck in this system that is 105 years in the making of transition. And there's this secret that a very few people in the United States even understand. Families like the Kennedys, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, the Vanderbilts, they all knew this and they did it. Warren Buffett's father started his own family foundation and taught this system to Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett taught this system to Bill Gates. Bill Gates taught this system to Mark Zuckerberg. This information has been kept so frickin' secret that only the wealthiest people have been handing it out and passing it around. But it is literally transformative. It takes the whole idea of paying tax and completely shatters that story.
Wow.
You are the tax man, and your job as an entrepreneur is to make as much fucking money as you can so that you can direct that capital and do good work. And so that's what I do for entrepreneurs and business owners.
Excellent.
Is I show them that system, I show them how to lock it down, build and expand and create so that they can give it all away. I have a phrase and a saying that I tell people. If you want to learn this system and learn how to build massive amounts of wealth, you have to first learn how to give it all away. And so that's the mission, is to give it all away.